fun begins.
How's it going?
Hello.
Well, greetings, young Jedi. Hello there.
Hey everyone, Hybrid Toy Reviews here with Black Series of Yesteryear, a series where we take a retrospective look back at Black Series waves of, well, yesteryear. So today I am going to be combining two waves into one video because waves 3 and 4 of the red box packaging era in late 2015 to like January of 2016 contained so many repacks. We only had 5 new sculpts. So that said, I felt I should only make one video on these two instead of 2 short videos. So this was the time the movie was out. Most people had seen it. Everyone was excited about it, and they were kind of drip feeding us some new figures throughout that late December timeline. There was some really good stuff that finally came out that you probably wouldn't appreciate as much without having seen the movie. It was a pretty good time. So these figures are all pretty good figures for the time. But that said, let's go ahead and jump into them, start talking about what's going on. So Wave 3 is the repack heavy one of the two. There are 4 repacks going on here, and they are all from the first wave. We get a repack of Finn on Jakku, we get a repack of Rey and BB-8, we get a repack of Kylo Ren, and we get a repack of the First Order Stormtrooper. At this point, Finn was pretty much on pegs everywhere. This is like repack number 3 for him, or I guess just third wave in a row where he got issued. The First Order Stormtrooper, probably a good idea to keep that one out at this point. It did become pretty available at this point. I remember a couple months after I was able to get them pretty cheap on some clearance sales, but this was definitely getting to be the point where it's like, okay, it's out. Kylo Ren probably should have been evergreen for the duration of this movie release, so I'm okay with that one. And Rey was a little bit frustrating because it was just like another Rey, and we'd seen the movie, and we knew who was getting the lightsaber at this point, and we still didn't have the Skywalker lightsaber in Black Series yet, so that was a little annoying. But we had 4 repacks in Wave 3, and then we only had 2 unique figures, which are like, they're good if you're a deep cut appreciating guy. So figure number 10 in the red box line is the Resistance Trooper. Now, this guy is objectively a good figure. It's just not the most iconic design. We see them super briefly in Force Awakens. I don't think we even see the helmet beyond that movie. It's just one of those things where it's like, man, you either like it or you don't. It's a little simple to me, just a guy in an old war looking coat, with a kind of round helmet with a visor. It was okay. I picked up 2 of them. There was a whole running thing where people were like, there's variants on the helmet. And really all it is just like, there was a wash on the helmet, and I think different batches just got different intensity and how hard the wash was. So some were a little more brown, some were a little more green, and people were like, I'm getting variants, but it was the same face going on underneath of it, and so it never really tempted me too terribly much. I ended up with 2 just because I wanted a second one, but it is just the most generic looking man face underneath of that helmet, and it would have been cooler if they'd have done like they've done with figures since then, many years after this, to where I'm sure the technology just wasn't there in 2015, where if they'd have done swappable faceplates, that might have made this a little bit of an easier sell. I remember this guy peg warming pretty hard. And then figure number 11 in the red line is the First Order TIE Fighter pilot. And this is actually a really cool design. I like the helmet. I like the singular air tube going to the chest box instead of the dual. It just kind of differentiated it from the Imperial era. It's a very cool design. However, it does have a lot of things that are similar to the Imperial TIE Fighter pilot. You can very clearly tell this is an evolution. There's the shoulder pads, there's forearm armor on this guy, which is what differentiates them, because the Imperials just had soft, outfits all the way down the sleeves and the boots. But this guy's got some forearm armor going on. He's really cool, though. He's got good sculpt work all over that jumpsuit. These guys, like anything else in 2015, the sculpt gets a little broken up by the articulation, double pin knees and stuff, never a good look, but it's just a product of the time, and this guy is really cool, one of the cooler First Order figures. So that completes Wave 3. See what I was saying about how this could be a very short video if I didn't combine waves? So let's go ahead and work up to Wave 4. Wave 4 had 3 repacks, and as we just talked about it, the TIE Fighter pilot carried over into Wave 4. Cool design, probably a good idea to keep it on shelves. However, none of these guys are rare, so maybe it didn't need to be a repack. It probably wouldn't have been rare even if it wasn't repacked. But all the same, it was just something where it was neat. Sure, why not? Even though you don't really see a whole ton of them in the movie. And then we get another repack of Kylo Ren again, and then the awesome repack of this wave is they repack Red Box number 2, Rey and BB-8, and they just add the Skywalker lightsaber in there. They did not advertise it as being a change. Hasbro didn't make any stance or whatever. I believe the promo photos for the case coming out, originally didn't even feature the lightsaber. And then just it showed up and there was a lightsaber in the box. So that's cool. You normally don't see running changes in the line like that, so getting something like that on a repack that had been repacked like 3 times at this point, it was just cool to get that upgrade. It's a variant, so if you have the lightsaber one, you might want to go back and pick up the non-lightsaber one if you're a completionist. But yeah, technically 2 different types of Reys out there. And then, working from there, we had 3 new sculpts in Wave 4. Box number 12 is the First Order Snowtrooper, and I'm going to be honest, of all of the First Order Troopers, this is my favorite one as far as the action figure goes. As far as design, I am partial just to the plain First Order Stormtrooper, but the Snowtrooper, in my opinion, has the best articulation of the Force Awakens offerings. When we get near the end, like the Rise of Skywalker, the Jet Troopers are my favorite First Order Trooper of all in the figure format. But the Snow Trooper is my favorite Force Awakens offering. He features the best of what was available in 2015. He only had the single cut elbows, but they did get to 90 degrees. Couldn't say that for a lot of troopers at the time. The double pin knees were hidden by that rubber skirt. The rubber skirt, being a rubber skirt, typically would hinder articulation, but this guy didn't really struggle with that so much. Typically a snow trooper, you think of an Imperial snowtrooper and you think of a design that is just very hindered by all of the layers. This guy, not so much. He was really, really fun to pose. I remember posing this guy fondly. One of my favorite Force Awakens figures. I really like how his First Order Stormtrooper blaster comes with the stock, so you can have him shoulder it. Not all of the snowtroopers had that. You could swap that with your First Order Stormtroopers, because some of them had the stock and we hadn't gotten a Stormtrooper with that yet. So it was just cool getting a variant of the blaster at that point, and I do really, really like this one. This is a really good one. Figure number 13 was General Hux, and General Hux, again, like Phasma, very difficult to track down. I remember at the time, this wave, I don't think really hit retail so much. I think a lot of stores were sitting on the first 2 waves of Redbox at that point. Some of them that weren't so overloaded with them, maybe got some wave 3. Wave 4, if memory serves, was more an online set, and General Hux was hard to track down for a time. I remember I ended up getting him for retail, but I had to buy him on eBay from a seller in Japan months after he came out, so it took a while to get him. I did finally get him. And he's alright. He's a guy in a rubber trench coat, so that definitely can hinder some of the articulation, but that's also what he looks like in the movie, so say what you're going to say. The arm articulation is pretty good. The likeness is as okay as a pre-photo reel can ever get. I do like you see just a little bit of the red hair just poking out from under the cap. Nice thing also with the long coat is it does hide the double pins in the knees for a lot of the poses. I'm not saying that he's the best of the best or anything, but for what he needed to be, it was alright. And he did complete that Force Awakens trio of bad guy leaders of Kylo, Phasma, and Hux. So, he was needed, and I'm glad he came out. So, decent figure for what he needed to be. But yeah, I remember he was difficult to track down. Equally difficult to track down is figure number 14 in the lineup, X-Wing pilot Asti. So this is another Resistance X-Wing pilot. He uses a mostly different sculpt from Poe Dameron. I think the legs might be reused, just looking at photos. I've got these in storage right now, so I can't go dig them out. But I believe the legs are reuse, and then everything waist up is potentially new. But this is just a big alien dude X-Wing pilot. He has a unique helmet to accommodate the head better, and I never saw this at retail ever. It was one of those things where I was like, this guy might be just a touch fringe for me. I didn't know that I needed him. And I remember, funny story, it was summer, it might have been like July 2017, so long after he came out. I was in Fort Lauderdale at Florida SuperCon. It was my first ever Comic-Con. My friend Aiden and I were going to meet Peter Capaldi. He was still the current Doctor Who for a couple more months. And after getting our autographs, we walked around the vendor floor a bit, and I saw a guy that had X-Wing pilot. He had 4 Black Series. He had X-Wing pilot Asti, and he had the Emperor Lightning Darth Vader, the Walgreens one with the purple see-through helmet, and then he had a First Order Flame Trooper, and I forget what the other figure was. It might have been a TIE pilot or something, but I remember they were $10 each, or it was like $30 for all 4, and I didn't have Asti, and I was like, for $10, that's cool, and I didn't have the Vader, and I was like, for $10, that's cool, and the guy was trying to talk me into buying the other 2. He's like, I've been taking these to cons like for ages, like, buy the other 2 off me. And I'm like, man, like, I've got enough of those guys, and he's like, I'll make you the deal of the century. And I was like, okay, what's the deal of the century? And he's like, they're free, just take them. I was like, okay, I can't argue with that. So for $20, I got Asti, the Emperor Wrath of Vader, the Flamethrower Trooper, and I think it was a First Order TIE pilot. So $5 a figure. The sequel figures, even when the movies were coming out, not all of them were an easy sell. So just a time I remember from a few years ago. So I got him for a wicked deal. But yeah, he's a good figure. I like him. I think he's fine, and a lot of the alien sculpts in the line are the sculpts that generally hold up best over the years. So, I think of the Force Awakens figures, he's definitely one where, you're not just sitting here like, he needs redone, he came out so bad. Like, you could put him on the shelf with what's going on new now, and other than some visible articulation, I think he'd blend. But that said, that's all I got to talk about today for Wave 3 and 4, the double feature, if you will. I try to keep these at about 10 minutes, but I knew they were going to be like 6-minute episodes if I split these 2 waves up, just because of the heavy reuse going on. So thank you for listening to me for a double feature and just listening to me ramble. I was here when these figures all came out. I'm sentimental on them, so I'm just happy to talk about them. It was a time that I look back on fondly. I just remember being so excited with The Force Awakens. I saw it in theaters. We had a local theater. It was like a $5 ticket. It was like a cheap small town theater. I must have seen Force Awakens in theaters 15 times. I remember the opening night vibes. I am very sentimental about this time, and this was like where I was starting to get access to some grown-up money, some after-school work in high school, so I was spending a lot of money on Force Awakens toys, and I love them all dearly to date. So, anyways, we're starting to get near the end of the Force Awakens bias. The next wave is going to feature a prequel character, the worst figure in the line, in my opinion, so spoiler alert. But I'm going to go work on that video now. So thank you for hanging out with me. May the Force be with each and every one of you, and I look forward to talking to you more next week.